It's Tuesday. It's a little overcast, but still quite a nice day. I've noticed that I'm getting quite a few people from Sweden actually watching the channel. Well, it's about 3.5%. It's nowhere near as many as Australia, but it's the most I'm getting from overseas, which is quite amazing, more than America. Maybe because I actually mentioned how well things were going over in Sweden at the moment with the way they're handling the coronavirus, and it's in line with what I've been saying from the word go, that basically the virus itself is one aspect of this situation, but the way the governments have responded to the virus has actually been more damaging than the actual virus itself, and by creating such disruption. It shows how out of touch governments are with the way that the private enterprise aspect of the economy works. They're quite prepared to shut it down. Mind you, the government bureaucracy just keeps rolling along. They don't lose their jobs. They don't have any pay cuts. They really are in another world, the politicians and the bureaucracy that backs them up. But I think Sweden has really shown that you can have a balance to this. People think of Sweden as being incredibly socialist, but it's actually not really. It's got a lot of social welfare, as does Australia, but there's plenty of free enterprise in Sweden, which is making the country rich and keeping it rich. So, I think people have got to have a more sophisticated view of what's happening there. I'd still rather be here than there, simply because I don't think I could handle the cold weather, and I certainly couldn't handle the price of beer. It's the taxes are quite heavy. I've got a friend in Sweden I've been in contact with for years, and he goes down to Denmark he takes his Volvo down there and stocks it up with beer from that country, because it's probably still not cheap, but it's cheaper than Sweden. So, but that's only a trivial thing. I'm sure it's quite a nice place to live. If you're in the right area. You can certainly have to be careful where you live these days, unfortunately. But there are, I'm sure it's a very attractive country too. And certainly there are intelligent people there, because I've got a bit of feedback on the latest videos, and I'm very, very happy. I don't get that many people subscribing to this channel, but I get quite a few subscribers who come back, which is nice to see. And they come up with very good comments. I'm really happy with the quality of the discussions that take place on this channel. I didn't want to go low. I wanted to take the high ground and try to have an intelligent discussion on these topics. And that's, I think I've achieved that. So I'm very happy with that. So it's not all about quantity, it's quality as well. Although it would be nice to finally surmount that 500 subscriber goal that I just haven't been able to achieve. That's a bridge too far from me by the looks of things. It keeps teasing me. I'm stuck in about 477. I just don't seem to be able to get beyond that. So look, I would really appreciate some more subscriptions, but look, that's okay. As I said, the quality is more important, so that's good. Well, now on to today. Actually, Look, I've got to tell you, I was absolutely gobsmacked what I read yesterday about Victoria. It's all about Victoria in Australia, because it's the second most populous state in Australia, and the economy is basically is frozen at the moment. They've got stage 4 lockdowns, and a lot of people, especially small businesses, just can't carry on their normal trade. So it's causing a lot of damage to the economy in the short, medium, and maybe even long term. So I don't like the prospects for Victoria. But what stunned me even more was that their megalomaniac Premier, Daniel Andrews, who has very close ties to China, has now decided to make a power grab for another 12 months of emergency rule, which entitles him to continue on with this draconian lockdown. Even though the figures are starting to improve in Victoria, it's all about power. Let's be honest. It's patently obvious to me that this is really what Daniel Andrews is on about, and so he wanted this extension. I couldn't believe it. It's going to cause so much damage. A former Premier of Victoria, Jeff Kennett, has really laid into Daniel Andrews over this and citing the amount of damage economically this is going to cause the state. It's also, when you look at corona figures, you look at the casualties, the people who die because of corona, that's only one aspect of it. You've got to look at what the damage is to people who are suffering under high unemployment. High unemployment leads to a higher suicide rate. So those figures need to be included in the mix to get a true indication of the damage done from something like this. Personally, I still think we've overreacted. It's certainly something we can't ignore. Coronavirus is here, and we need to address it. But I think the Swedes have done the balancing act. They are using certain strategies to reduce the spread of coronavirus, but they haven't shut down the whole country, and I think that is really good. And if more countries did this, we could hopefully get international travel happening sooner rather than later. I just think it is insane. But like Jeff Kennett's came in for a bit of stick through Sky News. Sky News is generally a fairly right of centre news outlet in Australia, where most of the media is pretty left wing, including the ABC, and that's a disgrace in itself, seeing that's publicly funded. I think they're supposed to be neutral, but they're nowhere near neutral, and that is disgraceful in my opinion. And Ida Buttrose, who's the chairperson, I think, of the ABC, she's the head honcho anyway. She's done nothing to improve the situation with the ABC. Just a total waste of public money, but that seems to be something we're good at in Australia, is wasting public money. But Jeff Kennett, a lot of people in Victoria have got it in for Jeff Kennett because he went through a major privatisation campaign. He was in power, must have been like about, I don't know how many years ago, it's over a decade ago he was in power. And he did a lot of reforming, and a lot of it rubbed people up the wrong way. And he privatised a lot of government organisations, he privatised the power, for instance, and privatised the gas. He privatised a lot of things, and there was quite a few people commenting on a story on Sky were very negative towards Kennett, and that was interesting because most of the people who comment on Sky are probably more right of centre. There's no doubt about that, but a whole lot of lefty-leaning people just decided to pile on to the site and get stuck into Jeff. I must admit his choice of clothing wasn't the greatest, but it's typical of the left. They were more fixated on what he was wearing, a large number of them, rather than the actual policy situation. But I expect that from the left. They tend to play the man rather than work on the actual policies, and I don't like that. And I don't want this site to be like that. I want it to be basically about policies. And if you're leaning left and you've got some policy thing to talk about, by all means, that's open forum. That's what I don't like about YouTube, is that they are using clandestine methods to basically stifle free speech, and I find that very distressing. And they've even actually been putting in notices saying that they're worried about the control that the Australian government wants to put on them, and get money paid to media companies because they say that Google's had a free ride. They pay virtually no tax, Google. I mean, it's disgraceful when you consider how much money the company is making. There's definitely something wrong with the whole taxation system within Australia and globally, and definitely needs some major reform, in my opinion. Anyway, the other thing I did want to say about the situation in Victoria, Daniel Andrews not only is making this huge power grab, but he's also using a sledgehammer. He basically is putting all of rural Victoria in the same boat as Melbourne, and that is ridiculous. So these people in rural Victoria, areas that have got very little affection of corona, are being treated exactly the same as in the Melbourne, which is a huge city, but compared to the population of the state, it's actually the state's about 6.4 million, something like that, and Melbourne itself is about 4.5 million. So it gives you an idea how dominant Melbourne is compared to the population of the state. It's huge, but the people in the state who have got a low risk of the coronavirus are being subjected to the same shutdown, sledgehammer type approach that they're using in Melbourne. I just think that's ridiculous, and it's very punitive. It probably says something about how Labor has got disdain for people in the country too. They're not really great supporters. And speaking of governments who have disdain for people in the country, in Queensland, which is a northeastern state, the third most populous state, the Premier there, Anastasia Palaszczuk, has had it in for rural people for some time and making life very difficult. She's much more aligned with the Greens rather than the interests of the actual rural people who are trying to make a living. And I think she's going to pay dearly for that in the next election. There's an election coming up in less than 2 months, so we'll see what happens there. But the story I've got to tell you about is a very tragic story, another tragic story to do with corona. There's a woman from Queensland near the Sunshine Coast, and she was rushed to Sydney for brain surgery. So we're not talking trivial stuff here. We're talking about a major surgery, life-saving surgery. So she got the surgery done. Thank God it worked out well for her. She's a grandmother of 60 years of age, and she wanted to get back to her home in Sunshine Coast to recuperate, as most people would want to do after having a major operation. But the Queensland Health, talking about another sledgehammer, Queensland Health, in their wisdom, have decided not to grant this woman an exemption to having to go through an expensive quarantine process. I think she was going to be up for $2,600 to be in quarantine for 14 days, on top of the $100,000 she's up for the operation. To me, this sounds incredibly heartless, this whole thing. It just... it's heartless, and it shows the inflexibility and hypocrisy of Queensland Health, in my opinion. Jeanette Young, you should hang your head in shame over this incident. Why are you treating this woman so poorly? I mean, is she that much of a risk to the state? Why can't she just go home and self-quarantine for 2 weeks? I mean, really, it's just disgusting that they're not granting her an exemption. And Anastasia Palaszczuk, I don't think she thinks she's being clever. I think she thinks she's being politically canny by being real hard ass about the state border closures. But I think it's going to come back to bite her in the election. Hopefully I'm right. I don't know. I'm just guessing. But I think that this is a bad look. And on top of that, when you consider the hypocrisy of this government, like I say, I'll say it once more, they have granted Indigenous people exemptions to go to gather in large groups for funerals in the past, whereas anybody else in the state would have to go through the normal restrictive edicts of shutdown. So that just shows you they're just full of it. They are absolutely full of it. And I think ice must run through the veins of Anastasia Palaszczuk. I really wonder what makes this woman tick. I think it's maybe she needs a bit of antifreeze, because she's seeming pretty damn heartless to me at the moment. So I'm very angry about this. This is the second situation we've had where the medical authorities are basically running the show in the state. Anastasia seems to have a total lack of common sense in this regard, and a lack of compassion, and a lack of reality. I just don't get this. This shows how out of touch governments are. I think it's really an indictment on the way governments are being run in this country. And again, I go back to Sweden. They're not going through this crap. You can avoid it. This is not necessary. This is not something we have to do. And we've been conned. And we need to start thinking for ourselves and fighting back against this sort of tyranny, which I think it really is. So look, I'm sorry, I'm a bit worked up over this. I really am, and this is quite sincere. I mean, unless some other information comes out about this latest one with this woman with the brain tumour, I just cannot believe that they've done this to this woman. Again, thank you for all your comments and everything. I really appreciate it. If you do enjoy what you're watching here, please consider giving me a thumbs up or even a thumbs down. Any interaction's important, and comments are appreciated as well. And if you're really, really generous, help me climb that mountain to reach 500 subscribers. Every subscriber counts, so just think about it anyway. So thanks for that, and I'll move on with some footage I've just shot on my GoPro. So have a good day, everyone. Well, that's the sound of the fire alarm from downstairs, the smoke alarm, and it's been going on for about half hour. I was contacted Body Corporate. I think they contacted the someone to come and check it out, but I'm not sure. But it's my neighbour just directly downstairs again, so if nothing happens soon, I'll contact the... I have to ring 000 and get the fire brigade to come out, but hopefully my place won't go up in flames. It seems okay at the moment, but obviously I'm concerned. You can feel a bit of heat there on the tiles. This is something that happens in this flat. It's very strange. There's a bit of heat just there, and so that's where their kitchen would be presumably as well. So I'm a little concerned. Oh, the fire brigades, yeah, they just bashed down the door, I think so. Yeah. Like I say, just got this grease, burnt grease smell that's pervading the flat right now, so it's not great, but at least I'm glad the guy's turned up. It's excellent. The alarm's going off again. I don't know what the story is there. Okay.